to Before You Tank, thriving in an industry that sucks. We say it sucks because 98% will fail. Our mission is to make sure you don't. Hi everybody, welcome back. We're here today with Katie, from the founder of the Inventors Club for Women. I've got Keith as usual with me, but we're really excited today because Katie's background is PR, and PR is amazing when you can get good PR, and she knows how to get it for free. So Katie, tell us all the secrets that you have so that our inventors, we want it all. Give us every tidbit.
Absolutely. I love being able to share this because our innovators and the women and few good men that are part of ICW, Inventors Club for Women, really need this. They need to be able to get it for as little money as possible. So the one organization that I always reach out to is Help a Reporter Out, also known as Harrow. But when you're Googling it, look up Help a Reporter Out, because Harrow was a totally different website. Yes, it's a totally different website. I always recommend the paid version. It's $19 a month. There is a free version, so if you want to try it out, you can do that. But it's a long, lengthy process. They'll send you like one email a day, and then you can respond to it. Basically, the request from journalists is really what you're responding to. So if you do the $19 a month, you can respond to potentially 20 or more a day.
So they're saying what they need, like
specifically what they need.
Oh, that's
correct.
So cool.
So maybe they're looking for someone that has a product. And this could be across the country. So I know innovators that have received placements in the Chicago Tribune or Washington Post, and they don't live in those cities.
Yeah. Right.
So it's a really big deal because journalists are always looking for stories. Yeah. And that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, we actually didn't know about the paid tip, so I'll have to remember that. But when we used the free version a little while back, actually, and just experimented around to see like, how does this work? Did get a placement with like a small, not any name brand that anybody recognized, but it was a really neat process, and it was kind of good to see how all that comes together and how you can do it for yourself.
Absolutely. And it's actually a great opportunity to hire, maybe you have a teenage kid at home that's looking for extra money, or a niece, nephew, or a college kid that's looking for money. Have them respond to the requests, and you can even have something typed out ahead of time so that they know exactly at least what topic it might be that they're responding to, because it can be a really time-consuming process. So that would be my one thing that I would recommend. But yeah, it's an awesome service.
And so to bring it back to a higher level for just 1 second, a lot of people today are thinking about social media instantly when they're thinking about marketing or whatever that channel is that instantly pops to mind. And so sometimes we think of PR only associated with like big companies that have all this established stuff and new press conferences, whatever it is. Right. But tell us a little bit about for, a startup or somebody who's working on a product, launch a product. How does that fit into their world?
Yeah, that's great. Great question. So on Instagram specifically, they have influencers out there that don't necessarily have to have 10,000 followers. Because just specifically, maybe those 10,000 followers aren't going to like your product, right? Yeah. So we have something called micro influencers. Maybe they only have 2,000 or 3,000 followers on their page, but maybe the majority of those are going to be people that love consumer products and something that you might have to offer. And it's a really great way to get into the eyes of 2,000-3,000 people for very little money, and that can just be reached out on your own through DM, direct message.
That's actually a really good point, right? So it really ties into everything we always talk about and kind of knowing your audience and who you're really trying to reach.
Absolutely.
But even at that point, kind of a direct message to an influencer is a very similar kind of approach.
Absolutely. And just because an influencer has maybe even 20, 30, 50,000 followers does not mean that your even $400 is going to be well spent from them doing a post. Yeah. Because it's not the right market. It's not the right market. Yeah. Your money is better spent paying someone to do Harrow searches for you to get multiple placements and real PR.
Interesting thing about that too is that they're have a longer life, right?
Absolutely.
As opposed to a social post it's pretty short life.
Well, there's something called earned media. So the earned media would be like the Harrow And I keep saying Harrow because it's an easier way to really get in front of journalists. So, any publication you can think of, from the Chicago Tribune to the Philadelphia Inquirer to the New York Times to the New York Post, any one of those is going to be earned media. And that earned media is going to live basically forever. Yeah. It's a really big deal.
Well, I have clients who I've been there's a gentleman, and I will put it on our website. Before you tank, you'll be able to go to our website. And there's a gentleman who does the product segment on the Today Show.
Yeah.
And it's really fun. And he's given instruction on, sometimes it's around Christmas, it'll be Christmas or whatever. And I've had clients be on that show, and they do really, really well because you're in front of a good audience, you can sell product. And I find that sometimes my innovator forgets to wait till they have product.
Absolutely.
So, we always hear, there's no bad PR. But to me, that's bad PR, right?
Absolutely.
And there can be. Place that.
Correct.
So, okay.
And there can be bad PR. And that's why, as you know, Luann, Today's Show and some of these other big media outlets that do promote small businesses or products, they require you to have X amount of units. So maybe anywhere between 2,000 and 5,000 units, because number one, they don't want to look bad, right?
Yeah.
But then on the other side of it, they don't want the innovator to look bad either.
Right.
And that's a really big deal, because if they do run out of product, everybody kind of looks bad, and it's just not a great situation.
So you want to, so there's ways to get to that.
Right.
You can get that. You guys, I've seen it happen all the time, that there's like Steven, who I'm going to give you, he has 3 other outlets that he uses that you can get to. Now, some of it you pay for, and the Today Show is free. But like you said, it's really important. I don't remember my clients having to have a quantity meet, but they should, no doubt about it. You guys, when you're going to use that PR, use it when it's important, so that you do.
Absolutely.
Is there a way to kind of use PR to get investment funding? Does that work ever, or no?
Well, that's a really interesting question.
I know. I thought it was
yes and no, right? So it definitely puts you on the investor's radar. However, there are founders out there that are appearing that they might be more successful than they actually are, just because of the amount of PR that they have. So
interesting.
That's
why, isn't that what we want? Sort of?
But that's why I said in another episode, always be your own publicist, right? So if you need something, you need to ask. If you're in the room with people and you want something from someone in that room, someone of importance, you need to speak up on your own behalf. You need to always be your own publicist, because the PR can only get you so far.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting that you mentioned earlier, you're talking about having enough product, have enough inventory, right? What about PR for the cases where you're not there yet, right? Let's say you're going to launch a product, maybe you're doing a new Kickstarter, right? That's an interesting topic in and of itself, but how does it apply there, right? Because a lot of people are under the impression that Kickstarter is just, you throw a product on there, 1 million people see it, you get all kinds of money. How, we all know that has developed a lot over time, and so it's different now. Right. How does PR factor in?
Yeah, that's huge. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Keith, because with Kickstarter, in order to have a successful campaign, and that's really what it is, you need to have an entire PR campaign around that.
Yeah. People forget that. You have to do all that first.
It's a really big deal. There are ways to do it yourself. I highly recommend at least consulting with someone, maybe on Fiverr, Upwork. It's going to be less expensive, but you can do a lot of the homework yourself, and that would be doing research for bloggers that post specifically for Kickstarter and that sort of thing, and different media outlets that post for Kickstarter, and really reaching out to them before anyone else, and then getting them on the list so that you're ready to blast them out when you're ready to kick off your Kickstarter.
Yeah. When would you start that? Because I know when we talk to somebody about Kickstarter from a digital marketing standpoint, we say it's sort of a bring your own audience platform in a sense, right? Because you're trying to build up to that launch.
Right.
And so we tell people, you got to be 6 months out.
At least 6
for
months.
This stuff, right?
Yeah. So the Kickstarter campaigns that we've done that have been successful, and I've worked on the PR side of things, so it really does take an entire team to make it successful. Yeah. And there's a lot of rules and regulations you have to follow with Kickstarter, or you could get into a lot of trouble. Yeah. Another little tip for Kickstarter is that it is a very male-oriented platform. So the products that do really well on there are gadgety devices that men would purchase. Don't ask me why, this is just a thing. So really reaching out to those publications that would promote men's products maybe even, but always ask, do they promote Kickstarters? Because you just don't want to waste your time. Yeah, that's a really big deal. Point. Yeah.
And we say Kickstarter, but I'm sure there's other platforms that probably come to mind, like Indiegogo and all
for
the
sure.
other crowdfunding.
Absolutely.
But I think everybody's just so familiar with
And
that
most
brand.
people start on Kickstarter and then they go to Indiegogo second. But as far as timeline, I just want to back up and mention that. So typically when people would come to us with Kickstarters, they would start a year out.
Yeah.
And then 9 months out, within the first 3 months, we're working on the research for just collecting the different media outlets that we're going to blast this out to. And then between, 9 and 6 months, that's when we're sort of in discussions and pitching them ahead of time. And you really want to have a media kit. So you want to have your pitch in place, but you also, similar to a pitch deck, but you want to have a media kit. And I would Google that. It's going to give you the best information. And when you're pitching journalists with your product, make sure you figure out how to create a link for your media kit. They do not want their inboxes filled with PDFs. They'll delete it before anything else. It'll just be gone.
That's good.
That's interesting to know.
So
you make a link. So let me see. I think you said something that I wasn't sure I totally followed, but when you were saying to build for the Kickstarter campaign, to build it, you said to go after the influencers first, because they come with 3,000 people, right? So you're trying to build because you want to have a following of 10,000, 100,000, whatever you
Absolutely. Get. So, and you're going to have sort of a combination of influencers, bloggers, other media outlets, and really that's going to be based upon your research. So research
finding the right
whoever's doing the research. It could be you, it could be someone you hire, but the research is going to be key in compiling that list. And you really want to have a list of at least 50 media outlets, because they're out there. There's tons of media outlets that promote Kickstarters. You just have to find them.
And it has to be ones that are going to target a product like you're selling.
Correct.
Okay, because otherwise you guys have wasted
your
time.
And the majority of the products that are on Kickstarter are going to be similar, so keep that in mind too. If you have a gadgety type product, again, that can be potentially male-oriented, a beauty product is not going to do well at all on Kickstarter. So keep that in mind. Unless it's something that is sort of male-oriented. If it's a shave cream or something along those lines, or a shave device, fine. But if it's very female-oriented, it's just not going to do well on Kickstarter.
Very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad you laid out that timeline, because we often get folks that are, come in and say, hey, I want to do a Kickstarter. We ask about launch, and they're like, well, I'm thinking about launching next month. And you're like,
it'll never happen. It'll never happen.
Even just building it out.
Right. And PR is a process. Luann had mentioned reach outs on another podcast for buyers, and it's this same with PR. 7 times is really how many times it takes to reach a media outlet. 7 times until you get a response, if you get a response.
Wow.
So what you're trying to do is make your pitch as clear, as concise, make it as easy for the journalist as possible, so they don't delete you. And make sure that your subject line is something enticing so that they will open it. And you can Google best subject lines for products, best subject lines for Kickstarter campaigns, all of these types of things. Google is going to be your best friend.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's some really great tips. So, I heard, Google, find good subject lines, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that you're not adding attachments, because that's going to get you booted out of the inbox pretty quickly, right? Be pleasantly persistent, as we like to say, right? And kind of continue to follow up. And know who you're reaching out to, because if you're using Kickstarter, or if you have this kind of product or that kind of product.
And know your audience. You don't want to pitch a journalist that works on crime, even if you happen to know, you could be best friends with the producer at the Today Show and still never get a media placement. And that's the biggest misconception. I just explained this to someone else not long ago, that it does not matter who you are. If they don't like your story, they're not going to take it. If they don't have a place for that story, they're not going to take it. So more often than not, a lot of journalists will encourage you to pitch the info desk, because the info desk, it all goes straight there, and then everything gets divided out to the right journalists. So you don't have, the work has sort of been done. Yeah. You don't have to figure it out. All your local ABC, NBC, local cable channels, or, you know, whoever you're pitching, you know, a lot of different media outlets have product segments in their morning shows and that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
So, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know this is not exactly relevant, but we did an event in my hometown, and we wanted to film something for the president. And I went to the local media. They liked, you know, we were in a recession. They liked what we were doing. And not only did we get coverage, we got a PR woman that came to bat for us. And we also got to use the local news helicopter. And the helicopter flew in. And we got 2,000 kids on a ball field. And so I guess what I'm saying is you have to ask.
Yes.
Or you won't know.
Always.
And so because my cause was great, we had kids involved, which help, you know, high school kids, but you guys, they want that story. They loved us. It turned out to get really out of proportion crazy. So it wasn't a product, but but I do believe in the same thing.
Absolutely.
That if your story is right and you're at the right people, they do want to help, and they do need the story.
Absolutely. So and that just touches on one quick story that I'll tell. She's actually an inventor from Orlando. So she's local to here, to Central Florida. And she created a product called Polyblocks, and it is a teaching tool. And she donated a ton of them to schools in Central Florida. And that got her a significant amount of media coverage, and it was really, really awesome. So, that's
so having the right heart, being creative, using everything we taught you.
They want to hear generous stories. They want to hear really feel good stories. So if you're in a position where you're able to do that,
I love that.
More often than not, you will get the media coverage.
And that's that creative angle.
Yes.
Anytime you do good, you get back.
Yes.
Even if you're selling, if you're thinking of the buyer, he's going to help you. If you're thinking of the community, you're going to get help for that. I love that. I love that.
It's great.
So tip of the day.
Would it be cheating to say call Katie when you need some PR help? No, I mean, in reality, though, I mean, I think there's just so much more information we can mine out of that. But I guess I would say, doing good research, really, because I think that you find that there's a lot of this stuff that maybe you don't know. Maybe it's the first time you've heard of Harrow or something like that. But digging in, finding out what are those tools and opportunities to reach new people.
And I think my tip, I'm going to end on you since you're the expert. I think my tip is to realize that it's an asset for you. Yes. That PR is one of those things that has to be in your portfolio of your creative marketing strategy. And using the tips that she gave us, then you'll know when to get it, how to get it, and be creative to get it. So I love the generosity angle. I think that's great. And you guys, I think those opportunities come around more than people realize. That you have a product that will solve a problem that's an issue right now in the front and center. So I like that. So what do you give us your best tip?
So I would say, as I've given this tip before, be your own publicist. And do not be afraid of getting PR. So reach out to those Harrow requests, and really just be confident and know that everyone started somewhere, and you have just as much opportunity as somebody else does to score the media segment on television, and also score the placement in the New York Times, and also just always be promoting yourself, because just because you get the PR doesn't necessarily mean you're successful, because you know that as a founder, there's so many needs, so many things that you need in general, and you want to always make sure that you're communicating that when necessary.
That's awesome. And I think Spanx is the best example of using PR, right?
Absolutely.
She went to Oprah. She's worked for 2 years. She gets on Oprah and changes her entire world.
Right.
But she had a product that was awesome. She was ready to go, and she stayed persistent, and she was confident. And you guys, I have to tell the secret, and then I'm going to let you go. But you guys, she got a purchase order, and she bought up most of the inventory. So that's creative. I love that.
It is.
So she made sure that what she gave in got bought up so that she could continue. So
I love it.
Yeah, it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.